Hi, everyone. My name is Vicki Vollweiler, and I'm the founder of College Financial Prep. And I'm with Deborah Jacobs, the founder of Deborah, you take it
Money
away.
Smart for Life. I'm a financial coach.
And tonight we're going to be talking about teens, money, and college. Purposely intended for single parents. So whether you are separated, whether you're divorced, whether you're widowed, whether you're single by choice, this is the workshop for you. Deborah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Deb. I'm a financial coach. I basically do three things. I work with individuals to help them with their personal finances, sort of the foundational skills like budgeting and debt pay down and saving and figuring out goals and helping people to get there. I also provide financial education classes to young adults and teenagers, or anybody else who wants them. And I provide financial wellness workshops around the country. So those are the three things that I do in my business. And I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk with you about teens and money. So I'm going to start, and what I'm going to talk about are talking to your teens about money, teens and values and aligning values with money, and a few tips. Most of them you probably already know, but a few tips for saving money as you're raising teens, because we all know how expensive, and never mind college even, but just how expensive it is to raise teenagers. So I'm going to start with a screen share for just so that you have some slides to look at. And let me just put this on a slideshow. Okay, there we go. So teens and money. And so the first thing when we talk about teens and values, we think that our teens are kind of soaking up our values by watching us, and they are. But it's very easy to go through your life day by day and talk with your kids about doing their homework and the AP classes and the extracurriculars and babysitting and all of the doing their homework, all of those things day by day by day, and neglecting to actually explicitly talk with our kids about their values. What is it that's most important to you? What do you really want out of life? And it's this is something that can happen over time with many conversations. You may get some pushback, but there may be times when you're sitting at the dinner table and this can come up. And I think it's really important that we talk with our teenagers about values and what they want, because financial life is very much enmeshed in that. And we just don't talk about it enough. Their path may be different from the path of their peers. Everybody just expects that we're going to go to college, we're going to get a good job, we're going to make a lot of money, we're going to, have a family. We're all of those things that we expect of our kids, that society expects of us, expects of our kids, and their path may be different. And so really sitting down and making that explicit can be really important. So what I'd like to do is play a little game with you. If you have a piece of paper and a pencil, or a pen, if you don't, I'll wait just a minute till you get it. And this is something that you can do with your teen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two things at the same time. And I want you just to jot down which one pulls you the most. Now, these are things that would appeal to a teenager, not necessarily to you as an adult. So if you can number the left side of your page from 1 to 8, and we'll get started. Okay, so the first one is nice car or travel. Which one? There's no right or wrong. There's no judgment. Just whatever pulls you the most, write that one down. Don't give it too much thought. Second one, clubbing and partying with friends. Many of us at our age are past that, but your kids may not be. Or going to the gym. Which one pulls you? Latest fashions, high quality clothes, or high quality food, maybe organic, whatever. So is it clothes or food that pulls you the most? And again, no right or wrong, no judgment. Experiences with family and or friends, or expressing your creativity or pursuing your passion or your hobby. Okay, number 5, having a nice home or doing work you love. I mean, the dichotomy isn't here like living in a shack versus doing the work you love, but having, a really expensive, big, beautiful home or doing work you love. And many people can do both. But again, just pull the one that pulls you the most. Education or self-improvement or adventure. Attending arts or sporting events, or providing financial help to family or friends. And then finally, giving to charity or your church or synagogue or whatever is important to you, or the freedom to do as you please. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is fold the paper in half, or on the right side of the page, number it 1 to 4. And I'm going to read off some numbers, and I want you to compare the 2 things that you wrote and write down which one of those 2 pulls you the most. So let's start with number 1 and number 8. Of the 2 things you wrote for those, write down on the second half of the page which one pulls you. Number 2 and number 7. Number 3 and number 6. And number 4 and number 5. So now you have a list from just a quick take of some things that really pull at you. And if your kid's up for it, you can play this kind of game with them. And there may be things that are completely missing from this list that you love. Put some of those things on there. The point is to take this list and start aligning it with your spending and talking with your teen about aligning what you want the most out of life, what your values are with your spending. So how do we do that? The first thing we can do is tie spending choices to the values and explain it again, making things explicit instead of just assuming that your child's going to understand why you're making the choices that you're making and what you're doing. So instead of saying something like, I don't have money for that, let's say they want the latest iPhone or whatever, you can say something like, it's really important for me that we take a family trip every year. So instead of spending the money on the latest gadgets, I would rather put that money towards creating those memories. And really make that, again, make it explicit. Another thing that you can do is you can involve them in your spending decisions and offer values-based choices. So that might look like something like, talking to your child and saying, I'm thinking about buying a new sofa, but if I do that, we won't be able to go out to eat for a few months because I'm going to take that money that we spend going out to eat and I'm going to put it towards the sofa. What do you think? What would you do? And have them be involved in that kind of decision making. What's more important? Those weekly out to dinner or bi-week, every couple of times a week going out to dinner, or having the new sofa. And you can talk about why one is more important than the other. One small example of many conversations that you can have with your child. And then the other thing is that you don't want to direct them, but you want to offer examples of possibilities tell them you trust their choices and help them evaluate mistakes. So, for example, your child might want to go on a trip, maybe a school sponsored trip, and it's really expensive. And instead of saying, okay, here's the money, I'll pay for it, you can say, well, let me help you figure out how you can earn the money for that trip. And then you can help them budget and help them figure out, what they need to do, whether it's babysitting or getting a job or raking leaves or whatever it may be. And then if they blow it, going out with their friends or whatever it is, you can say, oh, I'm really sorry that happened. Would you like to sit down and figure out, how to budget so that that won't happen again next time? You don't jump in and save them, although I know as a mom, and particularly a single mom, it's very much a pull on our hearts to jump in and save our kids. But we can let them make mistakes, and that's actually good for them to figure that out. Okay, what if your ex has very different values than you do, particularly around money? And this can get really tricky, especially if they have more money than you do and they're buying love, so to speak. They're showering your child with a lot of things that are shiny objects that are very hard for your child to navigate this. So one of the first things you can do again is make things explicit. Explain your choices. Be explicit about the difference in values. So you might say something like, it's really important to me that we have security so that if something were to happen and I were to lose my job, for instance, we would be fine. But, your mom or your dad, whoever the ex is, values status more. And so they have, they get a new car every couple of years. And I choose not to get a new car every couple of years because I want to put that money towards other things. And they're making the choice to put that money towards a new car. You try to do it without that I'm better and they're not, that kind of value judgment, which is really, really hard. You're walking a tightrope here. You're trying to let your child know your values and hopefully steer your child in that direction. But on the other hand, you don't want to badmouth your ex. You just want to explain non-judgmentally the values divide. And so then you can talk to your child about they get to decide. You can decide to do it dad's way or mom's way, or you can decide to do it my way or something in the middle. I just want to make sure that whatever you choose, whatever you value, that you set yourself up for financial success so that you don't find yourself with debt and you don't find yourself in a hole. And then the other situation that we can sometimes find ourselves in is a lopsided financial situation post-divorce. So your ex may end up with a lot more money than you have. Or you may end up with a lot more money than your ex has. Hopefully it's more even than that, but we know that often that's not the case. So it's totally okay to say things like, material possessions are nice, but they don't equal love. Again, like flat, no emotion with it, but it's okay to say that. And also you can say things like, your mom or your dad has more money than I do, but we both love you very much. Okay. All right, talking with teens about money. The first thing that's really important is removing the stigma. It's very hard for us sometimes to talk about money. We have our stories about money from our own childhoods. And we have this societal taboo about talking about how much money we make. But if your child is curious and asks, I would urge you to share your numbers and let them in, let them know, because how are they going to learn if they don't know how you're making your decisions based on the income that comes in and the expenses that you have? And you can involve them in the spending decisions. So, like we said, the sofa, that kind of thing. Involve them in when you go to shop. Not really sure I want this. It's really expensive. What do you think? If we do this, then we'll have a little less money to do that, and involve them. And when they want something that you think is frivolous, instead of saying, again, I don't have the money for that, or no, you can't have that, let them make their decision. You can say something like, that's not in my budget, but I can help you brainstorm ideas for earning the money, if it's really important, and then you can sit down and help them figure out how to make that money. And always, always, always include money as part of the college or post-high school conversation. I see Vicky smiling.
Can't stress it enough.
Yeah, because what happens a lot is we're caught up in that whole wave of, where's your child going to college? Where are they applying? There are 25 elite schools that everybody thinks they have to go to in order to be successful in life. And, they have to get the grades, they have to get the SATs. It's like a big like push, and everything else goes to the wayside. At the same time, we don't talk about the financial implications. If you go to this school, let's look at the calculator. It looks like we'll be responsible for X number of dollars. That's a lot of money. You'll probably have to take out some loans. I may have to take out some loans. Talk about the money and weigh out what's more important.
Can
Again,
I jump in for a sec?
yeah, sure.
So to parents, to families, I can't stress enough what Deborah's saying. Too often I've seen people commit to a college and then try to figure out how they're going to pay for it. And then when they realize what the numbers are, then they have to let the kids down at the last second. It's so much more beneficial for the parent, the child, both parents, when available, to work together towards that common goal, to determine how much money is available for college and try to shoot for a certain budget, and then find the colleges that are going to be financially friendly to fit within that budget. So, we'll talk about college in a little bit, but, I want everybody to have on their college lists. I'm sure everybody knows the names, Reach schools, Target schools, safety schools, but I also want financially friendly schools on the list. And that's something that I do with clients. We'll go through the different colleges. We'll figure out what they will likely cost your specific household based on your finances, and then determine if it's financially friendly for your family. So it is possible to figure this out in the beginning of the process as opposed to at the end.
Okay. So the one thing I would say, if you're going to nag your teens, if you're going to hammer things home, over and over, talk about these 3 principles. These are the 3 things that will put your kid on the path to financial success in life. Number 1, you have to spend less than you earn. I mean, there's just no way to get financially stable and ahead unless you're living within your means. Number 2, pay yourself first. And what this means is that what most people do is they figure out all their expenses, then they look at their income, they subtract out all the expenses, and whatever's left over, that's what they save, if anything is left over. And I'm going to urge you to start talking to your child about flipping that and doing it the other way. Figure out a percentage of what you want to save every time money comes in. Right now, this may be birthday money. It may be money from a part-time job. It may be money from things like babysitting and other, semi-entrepreneurial things that your kid is doing. But whatever money comes in, have them get in the habit now of putting even a small percentage aside. And then the third thing is investing early and often. And we're not going to get into investing now, but just keep that in mind. The longer you're in the market, the more beneficial that is. So investing early and often will put your child in good financial stead. Okay, let's talk very briefly about reducing the cost of raising teens, and then we'll turn it over to Vicky to talk about college financing, which I know you're all waiting for. So these tips, you probably already know a lot of them. They're just, quick and easy things. But there are ways it's really expensive to raise teens. And these are ways that you can cut down on some of those costs. So the first is simple, just use the library. Now, if your kid's a reader, that's an obvious one, but most libraries offer so much more than books. Let's say they're interested in trying out a musical instrument. Instead of buying one, borrow it from the library and let them check it out for a month or so, see if they like it. If you have a tradition of playing game night, maybe every Friday night is game night in your house. Instead of spending a lot of money to buy new games, check the games out of the library. Try them out, see if you like them before you buy them. You can borrow telescopes, you can get museum passes, all sorts of things at libraries. Of course, getting everything used. And your kid may just buy into this. So it's kind of trendy now to buy vintage and to get things at thrift stores. It's also environmentally friendly. So if you have a child who's concerned about the fate of the earth, buying things used is, goes right into that. So of course, buy nothing groups, thrift stores, Facebook Marketplace. There's a wonderful website called ThredUp where you can buy really nice used clothes, and there are all sorts of filters you can use, like either new with tags, like new, all sorts of things. So buying things used. Okay, food. This is one of the big three. Food, housing, and transportation are usually the biggest costs that people have. So how do we reduce the cost of food when we've got those teenagers with hollow legs in our houses? So again, involve them. So you might want to say to them, I have a challenge for you this month. I want to keep our food budget, let's say you have 2 kids, for the 3 of us below $500 this month, or at $450. Are you guys up for the challenge? Can you help me? What kinds of foods do you think we can eat? And involve them. If they ever come with you to the grocery store, teach them how to read unit prices so that they know that sometimes getting the bigger one is the better deal, sometimes not. Create traditions that don't cost a lot of money. So it may be, people have Taco Tuesday or they have pizza on Friday, but instead of going and buying the $20, $25 pizza at Flatbread, maybe what you can do is make some homemade pizza and involve them in doing that. And make a game of it. Again, the game of, can we keep it to this? The game of what can we do this week to just clean out our refrigerator? The next one is no buy weeks. So maybe you can say, do you think we can live for a week on what we already have in the house? Want to try it? See how it goes? And have a no buy week every once in a while. And then reducing waste. So again, buy-in for the climate. And for just not being wasteful, you can reserve a part of your refrigerator so that leftovers are upfront and visible, and you can eat those before other things get eaten, and just involve your kids. Okay, and then the big costs, sports and other passions. Those things cost a lot of money. I have a daughter who's a dancer, and it costs me a lot of money. To, the dance lessons, the point shoes, on and on and on and on. So a few ideas for reducing some of those costs is they can contribute. I know our kids have crazy schedules, and often for many of them, getting a job is not something that's going to happen. But they can occasionally, again, I'm going back to babysitting, or they can occasionally walk the dog for the neighbor, or, whatever it may be. They can trade work for a discount. So one thing that my daughter did when she was still in high school and she was dancing is she helped to clean the dressing room in exchange for a discount on the cost of her summer dance program. Local sponsorships. So if your kid is really an elite athlete or musician or dancer or whatever, there are local stores that might be willing to sponsor them, and maybe in exchange for you writing an article for them in the newspaper or publicizing them in some way. And then the other thing is it's okay to say no occasionally. So if there's a competition coming up that will be a plane ride and a hotel stay, and it's not something that is super important, it's okay to say no. I mean, if it's something that could possibly move them ahead, if they're thinking about becoming a professional in whatever it is they're doing, then you want to try to make it happen. But if it's just because I really want to go, it's okay sometimes to say no. Okay, so that is it. We're going to move it on to Vicki. I would be delighted to speak with any of you who either want to find out about financial education classes for your kids or even for yourself, or financial coaching. And we're going to wait to open it up for questions when Vicki's finished with her presentation.
If you have, first of all, thank you, Deborah. if anybody has questions for Deborah and you want to just put it in the chat now, or, you know, instead of waiting, you know, just writing it down, feel free however you want to do it. So now I'm going to share my screen, and bear with me. Okay, and we are going to talk about how to save money on the cost of college. I mean, just so you know, I mentioned earlier, I am divorced. The reason that I got into doing, you know, founding College Financial Prep was because I'm a divorced parent, and I noticed when going through this with my own son and with clients, because I was also a divorce coach at the time, people were very concerned. You're taking two very emotional topics, divorce and college, and then putting them together. Each come with their own sets of languages that you have to learn. And really, there's so much money that can be left on the table by not handling it correctly. So that's why my main focus with College Financial Prep is working with single parents. Don't get me wrong, I do work with people who are married, but my love is really helping single parents save money on the cost of college. So as Ben Franklin said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So let's make sure that everybody here succeeds. Here's information that you need to plan for college. So what expenses do you need to be concerned with? Especially if you're separated right now and you're going through a divorce, you're thinking about those upcoming divorce decrees. You know, college costs are more than just tuition and room and board. You may want to think about all of these costs that, you know, hopefully can be shared with a co-parent. You know, you have miscellaneous fees, whether it's the labs, computer supplies, fraternity and sorority costs. That could be another $2,000 a year. Travel expenses if the child will be flying, you know, to and from college. Tutoring expenses, and then even senior year. You have all of the college application fees. You have the sending the test scores for the ACT and SAT costs. The fees to set the cost to set up a dorm room. Think about how much money you may end up spending at, you know, Target or Kohl's or Bed Bath & Beyond or wherever to set up their dorms. The children will need spending money if they don't have a job. And what about their cell phone and dorm insurance? And there's also tuition insurance. So all different types of things, costs that you want to be mindful of as you go into planning for college. So something that everyone should be aware of, student loan debt statistics, and why the topic is so important. I am hopeful that the kids will minimize the amount of debt that they take on. And likewise, I'm hopeful that the parents will minimize the amount of debt that they have to take on. Because for us parents, I mean, it could certainly negatively impact our future retirement. What if you have to keep working? You know, are you going to be able to move or live the lifestyle that you want to in retirement? You know, it may not be possible. And for our kids, you know, will they be able to take the job that they really love, or are they going to have to take the job just because it has the highest paycheck? You know, will they be able to, if they have student loans, you know, find the apartment that they like? Will they be able to afford to get married, you know, and start a family? So it could have a lot of negative impact. So currently there's $1.57 trillion of student loan debt outstanding. 54% of college attendees are taking on debt, including student loans. And right now, the average amount of student loan debt per borrower is over $37,000. Now, technically, undergraduates can't take out more than $27,000 in their own student loans. However, once the kids go to grad school, if they're going to grad school, say for medical school or law school, they're taking out the full amount of loans. Those numbers could be much, much higher than this, and in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, this is just an average. So in order to save money, what I recommend through College Financial Prep is the GOAL system. And that stands for generate a college list. And as I said earlier, you want to make sure there are financially friendly schools on that list as well. And then coming up October 1st is when the financial aid forms open. So I'm sure most of you have heard of FAFSA. We'll talk a little bit about that later. That opens October 1st. After the kids are accepted to their colleges, come the spring, they'll receive their financial aid award letters from all the different schools that they were accepted to. This is a big time to start analyzing those numbers, the economic terms of each school, make comparisons, and it's time to start looking for more free money. And that can be from the schools themselves, it can be from scholarships, whatever different sources are out there. And then last, typically towards the end of the school year, summertime, is when you're going to be securing the student loans for fall semester at college. So for generating a college list, we already mentioned this: reach, target, safety, and financially friendly schools. We want to make sure that you have enough money, or it's planned out to be able to cover the costs for all 4 years. I've had too many people come and say to me, okay, we finished our 529, we're done with freshman year, now what do we do? Please, let's make a plan before the children go away and decide on a college, as opposed to a child already being at a school that may not be financially affordable over the entire course of their education. So how do we find free money? There are merit scholarships, and there are need-based aid. There's need-based aid. So in terms of merit scholarships, the most money comes from the colleges themselves, and it could be awarded for a variety of reasons. It's not just academics. It could be, to Deborah's example, maybe maybe the child is a star dancer, and they want that child for their dance department. That child may be offered a merit award. Maybe they're looking to expand their reach, and perhaps it's a school, I'm making this up, in the Midwest, and they're looking to attract students from other locations. They may want to entice the child with a merit scholarship. So various reasons, and even for academic reasons, the child does not necessarily need to be a 4.0 student. They were all different level colleges, and they all offer different merit-based awards. Typically the student should be, say, in the top 20% of applicants or so to possibly be in line to receive a merit scholarship. Now, the need-based aid, there's no hard and fast rule in terms of, okay, this is what you can't have above this amount to get a Pell Grant. A Pell Grant is offered by the government. First, you complete the FAFSA application, which is a federal form. And then it asks a whole bunch of questions, including how many people are in your household, your income, your assets, your age. They consider your age, how many years you have till retirement. And anyway, a whole host of other factors to determine who qualifies for need-based aid. So there's the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. Some of the states, not all of the states, also have their own financial aid application. And then some schools also require what's called the CSS profile. And then other schools have their own institutional financial aid forms. So lots of different forms to be concerned with. So honors programs. My opinion, honors programs are a great way to save money on the cost of college. There are many, many benefits. Usually they come with a lot of free money, merit scholarship money. Also, the children that enter the honors programs, the students that enter the honors programs, usually get priority housing, priority registration, extra networking opportunities with faculty and, and other special functions, living and learning communities, and they get to put it on their resume, that they graduated from an honors program. So these programs, again, they're for all different types of students. It's going to depend on the schools that they apply to. Will your child be accepted into an honors program at one of their reach schools? Likely not. Will they be accepted into an honors program at one of their safety schools? That's more likely. So it's just a question of being flexible in terms of finding the free money. You've probably heard of test optional colleges. A lot of schools have been going test optional, especially since the pandemic. And then there's also the term, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, test blind colleges. So test optional means that, it's up to you if you want to take the ACTs or the SATs, but many of the schools are still using these tests to award merit scholarship money. So especially if your child is a good test taker, I certainly recommend taking the tests. The test blind colleges, they're not going to look at the test scores at all. So you don't have to worry about sending it there, but definitely consider having your kids take the exams, because hopefully they'll do well and you can choose which schools to send the scores to, and hopefully they'll get merit scholarship money. Demonstrating interest. So it's probably a term that you've heard. Ways to do so: visit the school's website, request information, follow the colleges on social media, meet with the college admissions counselors at local college fairs. You may want to send emails to the college advisors with relevant questions, not things where you can just find the information on the websites. And if you can, visit the colleges and take a tour. All those things are ways to demonstrate interest. And the more interested you are in them, and perhaps the more interested the admissions counselor is with you, the more opportunity for merit scholarship money too. So let's talk about need-based aid. So need-based aid, we started to talk about earlier, the Pell Grant, but there's also work-study programs and subsidized loans. So for undergraduates, FAFSA looks at the students' and the parents' income and assets, as well as other factors. Now, for FAFSA, in terms of a single parent household, it's going to look primarily at the custodial parent. Now, sometimes, especially when I'm working with separated clients, because there are attorneys that refer their clients to me, we'll consider where it will be beneficial for the student, how that divorce agreement should be worded so as to benefit the family financially when they apply for financial aid. But in the main, it's the custodial parent who completes FAFSA. So we spoke earlier about student loans, and I mentioned, $27,000 was the max that a student can take out. And this is the way it works. So freshman year, your student can take out up to $5,500 in student loans through the government. Sophomore year, they could take out $6,500 in loans, and junior and senior year, they could take out up to $7,500 each year. There's no credit history check for the kids, no cosigner is needed for the kids, but let's step back and think about this for a moment. Freshman year, they could take out up to $5,500 per year. For example, your child may want to go to an $80,000 a year school. Who's paying for the rest? So it would be up to the parents. It's not possible to assume that if your child wants to go to $80,000 a year school, that they're going to be the ones that take out the student loans. It doesn't work that way, which leads me back to Deborah's point earlier. It's so important to have that conversation with the kids up front about college and finances. If there's need-based aid, after filling out FAFSA, if the government determines that you qualify for need-based aid, your student can receive what's called a subsidized student loan. And that means that the loan will not accrue interest while your child is in college. However, if you take out unsubsidized loans, if you didn't qualify for need, then those loans will accrue interest during the time that the child is in college. So, I strongly recommend that you always pay at least a little something back while the kids are in college. So if you need to help them pay for college, parents can take out Parent Plus loans, which is through the government. The student can take out private student loans, but then the student will need a cosigner. I mean, just know that typically it's not possible for a student to apply as an independent on the financial aid forms. I mean, there are a couple of situations that I'm working with right now where they are able to be claimed as independent, but those cases are so extreme, and I highly doubt would apply to any of us here. So why should everyone submit financial aid applications? Because some people think, oh, I earn too much money, I'm not going to bother, I won't get anything. So first reason, as counterintuitive as it may sound, sometimes the colleges want to see that you're looking for free money. So they won't award merit scholarship money until they see that you submitted a financial aid application. Also, if you want your child to apply for the $5,500 in student loans freshman year, you do that through the FAFSA application. Also, if your child is interested in being considered for work study, again, through the FAFSA application. Lastly, FAFSA can be considered almost like an insurance product. You fill out FAFSA and maybe you hope that you don't necessarily need it. If there should be some type of downward change in financial circumstance, heaven forbid a parent gets hit by a bus or something happens that really causes a change in the household's finances, if FAFSA is on file, it's then possible to go back to the school and ask them to re-review. And hopefully, you know, reduce your cost. So the student must submit the parent's financial information. You know, as I just mentioned, the student can't be considered independent. Without the financial aid forms, the student just won't qualify for financial aid. So if a parent refuses, the child is going to have a very, very hard time. So EFC may be a term that you've heard before. It stands for Expected Family Contribution. And it is not an exact number, but it is the number that the government comes up with that they determine how much they believe you can afford to pay for college each year. So how it's calculated is through FAFSA by going through and looking at your income and your assets, the number of people in your household, the ages of the people in your household, and so forth. That's how they determine what that student's EFC is. So why is EFC confusing to parents? It's because EFC is not actually the amount of money that you're going to pay for college. It depends on the specific college. And let me show you two examples. So school A, they meet 100% of a household's needs. So the EFC is $10,000 per year for this household. The cost of attendance at a school could be $70,000. So the need, 70 minus 10, they need basically a gift of $60,000. And since school A meets 100% of need, the cost for that school is only $10,000. But then you have school B, and they only meet 50% of need. And it's still the same EFC of 10,000, and school B also costs 70,000. And really they still need $60,000. But since this school only meets 50% of need, they're only going to give the student $30,000. They're not giving them $60,000 anymore. So here, this student's going to pay the $10,000 plus the extra $30,000. So now this school is going to cost $40,000. So every school is different. Nothing is standardized. Even though two schools can have the same sticker price, it could be totally different for each household. So work study, we started to talk about, you apply for it through the FAFSA, and it's working at an on-campus job, and you receive a paycheck every couple of weeks. And the kids can use this to put towards their spending money. It does not have to be put towards tuition, you know, but it's up to the kids to seek a position once they're on campus. They get work experience for their resumes, time management skills they learn. And really when the job is quiet, they get to do their homework and candidly watch Netflix or whatever else they're doing. So other financial aid forms that you should be aware of, CSS profile. We mentioned that there's some state-based financial aid forms and institutional forms. Now, the CSS profile is used by about 400 colleges, mostly private, though there are a couple of public schools. The CSS profile could get tricky, especially in separated and divorced situations. Many of the schools do require the financial information from both parents. If the parents are remarried, they will require the information from all 4 parents. You know, even if those step parents have no intentions of paying a dime for the child's college application. So this is when I'm working with families and being strategic in terms of which schools to apply to, and, you know, determining what's going to be most financially friendly for the family. What's different about the CSS profile is it takes a more holistic look at a household's finances. They really dig deep. They look at the retirement accounts, they look at the value of your home, they may ask the values of your cars, you know, and as I mentioned, they may look at the other parents' you know, income and assets as well. So, like weight loss, these results aren't typical, but I've literally had a few clients save hundreds of thousands of dollars each, and these were all divorce situations. How'd they do it? They applied to the right schools for their situation. The child was accepted at those schools, and then they chose to accept the one that had the lowest price. You know, so there has to be a lot of flexibility, and yes, the stars have to be aligned, but it can be done. So with divorce, with widowhood, with other extenuating circumstances, you know, it's important to be strategic. You know, if you're divorced, look for colleges that won't request the other parent's financial information. If your finances are limited, you know, determine what your net costs are going to be for each college before you submit the applications. And if you're looking to receive merit scholarships, you know, examine what your child's grades are and test scores, you know, and match them up with the schools where they're likely to receive awards. So success stories and failures, I'll just say it quickly like this. The success stories are where they all plan early, start planning before even sending out those applications. And I mean, knowing which schools to apply to that are going to be financially friendly. I mean, ideally, we could all save money in a 529 plan from when they're born and have enough to fully fund a child's education. But life happens. It doesn't work that way. You know, the failures, and seriously, I've received these calls. They're in the car driving to the kids' college and saying, oh, you know, how do we save money now? Then it's too late. You know, please plan early. You know, I can't stress anything beyond that. You know, so here's what I'm doing right now with families. We're developing and finalizing financially friendly college lists. You know, we're going to submit FAFSA as close to October 1st as possible, because that's, you know, when the bucket of money is largest at most schools. You know, we're strategizing with those that have, you know, difficult situations or unique situations to make sure that they're in the best position to apply for financial aid. You know, and what I'm doing now this year, I'm first launching it now, also doing an online group where we're going to meet monthly, and we're going to talk about different subjects, you know, timely subjects throughout the year, senior year, so that way parents don't miss a step. You know, they'll know exactly what to do for every month. And if you'd like to reach out, you could visit me online, collegefinancialprep.com. And the email is solutions@collegefinancialprep.com. So I hope that this has been helpful. Let me stop sharing. And I want to thank everyone for coming. I'm going to stop the recording before questions. And we will send out the recording to everyone tomorrow. So thank you, and then we'll do Q&A in a sec.